When Jane found out that her 96-year-old aunt, Sylvia Bloom, had amassed a fortune of more than $9 million, she had an oh my goodness moment. You see, her aunt, Miss Bloom, was just a legal secretary. She lived in New York City and worked at a law firm there for 67 years. She retired in 2016 and unfortunately passed just 2 years after that. She rode the subway into work every single day for those 67 years. But it wasn't until after her relatives read her will, they realized her wealth. $9 million! How'd she do it? For her day, she balanced her bosses, who were lawyers, checkbooks. And what she did is she just mirrored the trades and investments that they had made personally, secretly in her own name, again and again for 67 years. Then when she passed away, the majority was then directed to charity, quietly going about her days, growing her wealth in the shadows, away from the limelight, a premature death, and then 7 figures to charity. Truly an incredible story, and one not too dissimilar from this Winnipeg-based woman who recently donated $500 million, no strings attached, to the Winnipeg Foundation up here in Canada. We can see both of these ladies' stories now in hindsight, but many retirees live this life of quiet wealth every single day. Have you ever wondered how some manage to do this without drawing any attention to themselves? How do they do it? These stories are absolutely fascinating. And so in this video, we're going to unpack the 12 often unseen habits of wealthy retirees. We're going to look at the disciplines and approaches that they take to their finances and to their life so that you can learn from their success and maybe improve your own life. Hey, if we haven't ever met, my name is Steve Willems. I'm a wealth advisor with the Willems Wealth Planning Group out here in BC. We started this channel to help you plan for your own retirement, helping you plan and arrange your investments, your income streams, and ideally pay less tax along the way. So let's dive in with the first habit of quiet wealth, and that's a minimal digital footprint. You see, wealthy retirees, they tend to place a premium on privacy. And in today's online world, privacy is the one thing we can probably all agree that we're giving up in some degree. So for these folks, it's not just about keeping a low profile. There's a concern about protecting their wealth and reducing stress by not being overly involved in the digital town square that is social media. They know identity theft is on the rise up here in Canada, and with more at stake, this is just one area that they tend to pull back from. The second habit of quiet wealth is what we'll call financial literacy and prudence. Folks with quiet wealth, they understand the importance of a wide range of financial matters, including investment strategies, tax planning, estate issues. They're fluent in these topics. This isn't necessarily a nature-nurture thing. For many, they grew up learning about these topics. They're not necessarily experts here, though. There's no Superman capes. They still rely on professionals to support them. The data supports this too. This paper from 2012 confirmed how financial literacy affects household wealth accumulation, and this paper from 2011 looked at how increased financial literacy improved the likelihood of investing in the stock market, which allowed those folks to then benefit from what's called the equity premium. Education clearly matters, and so for those with quiet wealth, it's one of the keys to how they got to where they are now. The third habit of what we'll call quiet wealth in retirement is aligned lifestyle choices. You see, wealthy retirees tend to prefer quality of life over material displays of wealth. They choose typically modest homes, practical vehicles. Above all, they reject the big spending lifestyles that most of us will associate with rich people. Author and academic Thomas Stanley broke the ice on this topic a few decades ago with their groundbreaking book, The Millionaire Next Door. If you haven't read it, you have to. It's a fascinating read. It took 20 years of surveys and interviews and data to compile a detailed picture of who the rich are and how they live in a way that changed many people's perception, I know my own for sure, of what wealth really means. The fourth habit of quiet wealth in retirement is the valuing of privacy and discretion. This relates to that first item as well. In social settings, these folks tend to deflect from conversations about financial status. They might even just give vague answers to their friends saying, we're comfortable or we're doing fine. They realize the sensitivity about money in these settings, and just generally they want to see the conversation kind of move along to other things. They're just not looking for attention. The fifth habit of quiet wealth in retirement is what we would call smart health investments. Whether it be through personal trainers, healthy eating, high-end facilities, seasons passes at the ski club, they actually see investment in health as just that, an investment. They know that a pile of money means nothing if they don't have their health, and so typically they'll overspend in this area as a means to maintain it. From the outside, others might even think that this specific spend area is opulent or even excessive, but for these folks, it makes complete sense. It's entirely rational. The sixth area of quiet wealth is a passion for continuous learning, perhaps even curiosity. Folks who have grown their wealth tend to have an ingrained interest in this lifelong learning. They often do a fair bit of reading, listening to podcasts, working with their hands, solving problems. They find it kind of keeps their mind sharp and often opens up new opportunities as they explore learning this way. Deep-seated fear here is that cognitive decline will lead to a loss of independence down the road, which ultimately is their number one value over and above all. And so keeping their mind active helps to combat that risk in retirement. The seventh habit of quiet wealth lines up with the stories I mentioned earlier, a commitment to philanthropy and community. Many of these quietly wealthy retirees, they contribute to society in ways that often go unseen. They don't often seek recognition. They'll integrate strategic philanthropic planning into their overall financial situation. They'll maybe use anonymous gifts within their lifetime, flowed maybe through donor-advised funds, and at the end, maybe with meaningfully sized gifts intended to offset calculated estate tax costs. These flexible giving vehicles are incredibly powerful and growing at a super fast clip, and these folks are at the front of the line taking advantage of them. Eighth habit of quiet wealth relates to how they think of asset accumulation. You see, these folks, they tend to focus on acquiring assets that have an ability to appreciate or generate income. They understand how real estate and stock markets work. They have a natural trend line of sloping upwards and to the right, increasing in value over time and at least keeping pace with inflation. As a result, they tend to not allocate their capital conservatively. Given the choice, they'll tend to take a little bit more risk, not less. Any insurance policies that they have, maybe on their home, would typically have a higher deductible, not a lower deductible. When they were working, they probably tended towards the job with a variable compensation, not the job with a straight line salary. All of these dynamics then reflect in how they invest. Now, to be clear, just because they can take risk doesn't mean they need to take concentrated bets. Their investments tend to be broadly diversified. The ninth habit of quiet wealth is selective media consumption. Again, these folks prefer quality over quantity. And in today's noisy news scene, there's no shortage of quantity. So what they'll deliberately do is they'll turn the dial down and sometimes even fast entirely from the media, and they'll just put it on mute. And instead, they'll curate a high quality feed of vetted media consumption, news, entertainment, otherwise intended to create a positive and yet still informed worldview. Constant media exposure can create the perception of threat, and we can activate the fight or flight response, which then produces stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Studies show that this takes an actual physical toll on our bodies. In one study, participants who watched just 14 minutes of negative news showed an increase in both anxious and sad moods, and also showed significant increase in their tendency to catastrophize a personal worry. Quietly wealthy people will solve this by just turning the volume down. The 10th habit of quiet wealth is intentionality with time and relationships. These folks prioritize meaningful relationships and activities with people who they feel will enrich their lives. These social connections and activities, they improve their well-being, and so they care about how they spend their time and with who they spend that time with. Again, quality over quantity here. Typically deeper relationships with fewer people is what we've seen. The 11th habit of quiet wealth is the seeking of professional advice. These folks tend to appreciate and pay for specialized advice in estate planning, tax optimization, even investment strategies. They appreciate the value that these professionals will bring into their life, and they want to see a team of advisors with specialized capabilities, not just a single generalist who knows a little bit about a lot of things. The 12th habit, as we round out to the end, is what I would call a quiet confidence. These folks don't really rely on anyone for their well-being. They're entirely self-reliant. This gives them a degree of confidence as they go about their days. They're independent of societal validation. They don't really care about endorsement. They don't particularly care about what others think of them because they don't rely on their support. Now, I'm not saying that they're entitled or jerks or anything like that. They just go about their days in a way that makes them not get caught up or flustered by some of the common trappings others might be stuck in. Adopting these habits isn't about becoming wealthy overnight. It's not about flash success. It's about making smart, consistent choices that lead to a fulfilling retirement. If you're looking to plan a retirement that mirrors some of these principles, let's talk about how we can apply some of these habits to your retirement planning. Every week we set aside a bit of time to help people navigate their own retirements, giving you a way to get your questions answered. If you'd like to take advantage of that offer, I'll put a link in the description below. Remember, it's the quiet decisions that make the loudest impact. Hit that like button if you found today's insights valuable, subscribe for more retirement planning advice up here in Canada, and share your thoughts in the comments below if you found this helpful. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.